I got a new parts kit in the mail the other day. This is a DPM light machine gun. It's obviously demilled. This particular parts kit is from Bowman Arms on Gunbroker. They go by the username of Robert M. Bowman. I'll link their Gunbroker account in the description, or maybe I'll put an annotation right here. So you can click on the link and you can check out their Gunbroker page. They sell all sorts of parts kits. They got these DPMs. They have the DTMs, which is the tank crew version of this light machine gun. They have AK parts kits, SMGs like the Polish PM63. They have flare gun and flares. They have inert ordnance like mines and rockets, mags. They even have an RPG launcher that you can buy, a demilled RPG launcher. So that's where I got this parts kit from. So I'm going to break this video down into two parts. Before I go into detail on this gun and its operation, I'm going to show you what you get from Bowman Arms. It's a demilled gun. You have 3 torch cuts right there. So your receiver is demilled. It's no longer a firearm. And then you have 3 torch cuts on your barrel. So the barrel is toast. You won't be using that anytime soon. Bowman Arms did say that a company will be working on US made barrels. So if you're doing a semi-auto or a post sample, you might email them or keep an eye out for them. So, demilled gun. Bowman Arms basically explains on their Gunbroker site that I believe they said 9 out of 10 of these are basically unfired or 90% condition, and the other, 10% is 80% or better. So these guns are in great condition. You can see the stock, it's barely scratched up or anything. The metal finish on this is great. Unfortunately, the only damage is the demills. Got 3 cuts going right through them, but as far as I can tell from looking at it, the demill, or the there's not much missing basically from the torch cuts. It does look good, although I don't have the jig to space it out yet. There's not a whole lot missing in case you plan to build one of these up. You'll see Bowman Arms in their auction say you can buy extra pan magazines if you want. I believe they say 10 bucks a piece, but don't quote me on the price in case it changes. Mags look new and nice and new. I believe they might have a deal where you can either buy this pouch carrier separate, or if you buy a quantity of mags you might get it. You'll have to check their page again and check that out. Yeah, carrier here holds 3 pan magazines. I don't have them in there correctly. I can show you this more later. And we also have a sling, standard sling. And then we have a canvas carrying case for it. So all that stuff you can get from their auction page. So let's take a look at each one of these components individually, and we can look at their condition and how they operate. Here we have the lower receiver. The wood's in nice condition. This was packaged pretty well. It was all covered in shrink wrap, so luckily none of the wood got scratched up. Nice, dark, almost reddish finish. It's easier to see in the daylight. So if you're familiar with the DPM, you'll know that this here is the extended spring housing. It's almost like the buffer tube on an AR-15. The spring on the DP series of light machine guns used to be beneath the barrel, but they found that repeated firing, basically the spring lost its springiness, and the rifle would no longer return to battery or lock. It would no longer lock up. So they moved the spring. We'll visit this later. Just like an AR-15, the spring goes into this little buffer tube, and this can actually come off by pushing up on this, rotating. It comes off. This is symmetrical. I'm not sure why you would want to turn it to one side or the other, because your face doesn't really bump into that. but you can see its design. It's got a spring-loaded plunger that locks it in place. This is also symmetrical. So put it back like that. Push in, rotate, locks in place. Here you got the nice stock. First thing I noticed was unusual, was hard to tell, but there's no steel butt plate here. That's just the way it is. You'd think that there'd be something back there at least to protect the buttstock, but I guess it works just fine. And now that I think about it, that might be because it never even contacts the ground. I'd have to look at a picture again, but the pistol grip, the steel inner support for the pistol grip, might actually contact the ground first. So, speaking of the pistol grip, it's not like an AK grip where it's just bolted on. You do have an inner structural support that runs through there. You have a screw on this side, and it looks like a nut on that side to hold the grips on. Grips are in great condition. You can see a screw right there. Screw right there for the buttstock. Let's move backwards again. There's a sling swivel. This back here is a cleaning brush. Yep, try to get the threads back aligned. The gun serial number right there. This model has a safety. The DPM did not have a safety. It had a grip safety on the back where your pistol grip would be on a standard rifle stock. If you're familiar with open bolt SMGs, the trigger is pretty much identical. There we go. That'd be fire. So you squeeze the trigger, releases the bolt. This gun fires from an open bolt. Safety on. Blocks it from going all the way down. Still moves a little bit. You have this threaded section, or threaded hole right here, and this groove. This is where the two halves, or the upper meets the lower. You got that groove right there. Slides right into there. And then you put that little, you just thread this on, and somewhere along one of your last turns, this little detent locks up right there. And I'm assuming you can bend this if your turn doesn't quite line up where it should be. So right here is where the upper pivots on the lower. Here's our top receiver section. So you want to join your lower to your upper. Just put that right there. That goes down. And let's get my other piece on there first. So that would be in, or it wouldn't be there, but it'd be attached to here. So see, you can see the gap from where the the torch cut is. It's not too big. It's maybe 1/8 of an inch after you remove some of the slag in there. So that's the lower. Wood looks great on it. I like the grips. Alright, let's move on to the next piece. So here we have the receiver, the main shroud, front sight, gas assembly, rear sight. So let's check out all these pieces here. I already showed you the rear section. You only have the takedown on the one side. It was on both sides on the DP28. But on this gun, because the recoil spring's back there, it's only on one side. Next section has the rear sight. Pretty standard rear sight. And then you have this here. It's this is your mag release. Doubles up as a sight protector. So let me grab the drum here. This would be where you lock in pivot on the front. And it goes down like, clips in like that. You can see I'm not going in all the way because I have part of the old trap door kind of stuck on here. Or actually, this piece comes off. There's a door kind of like a ejection port cover on an AR-15, but only on this one you have to manually slide it forward. And unfortunately, that got destroyed in the D-mill. It's on 3 separate pieces because it got all cut up. So now I can show you what it really looks like. And there's some slag keeping it from going all the way, but you get the idea. That's where you would lock in. So you got your front pivot point for assembling your upper and your lower. You have these grooves in here. Probably reduces friction on the bolt and also helps clean debris. And this is your ejector. Your ejector rides your bolt right there. It's spring loaded on this. Let's see if we can. The pin's probably inside the rear sight there. Can't see how it's held in place or the spring, but it's in there. So it gets pushed down. When the gun fires, the bolt goes back with the shell casing on there and it kicks the edge of the cartridge there. And ejects the round. Also on this piece is one of the most important features of the gun. This is your lockup surface for the flaps on your bolt, which we'll discuss more of later when I show you the operation. On to the next piece. You can see there's more, or I guess that's the other half of the trap door there. This one's fused on there, you'd have to cut it off. This is where the relief starts for the flap lockout feature. Don't know, have a good word for it. You see where this opening starts here for the barrel. Let's look at our last chunk of receiver. This is what was hacked up on the old kits. Let's see if we can shine a light in there and see the barrel locking there. Kind of see them in there. That's where the barrel locks up. We would twist it 1/3 of a turn and it unlocks from those lugs in there, which are kind of hard to see. Let's see if I can get a better view. You can kind of see them in there. So those were destroyed on the last imports of these guns. This is the lower rail where the carrier rides. Here you have a button on this side When you press that button, it allows you to turn the barrel, and then you can pull it out from the front. Here's where the shroud starts, this seam right here. See the finish right there? It's very precise between the two, so it's like they must have finished them together. It's very seamless. And it looks like it's a staked screw possibly that you would back out and then unthread the shroud. It has some threads in here. So moving forward still, we have this little feature on the shroud right here. This is where the front of our pan mag locks up. So you would put your mag in like that and then clip it down into the piece I showed you earlier on the rear sight. So your barrel would be in here. Lower part is where your gas tube, or I don't know if that's the right word, your gas tube or your operating rod is. Or not gas tube, but your piston. So it'll be going all the way up to here. This is this is an adjustable gas port, I believe. It's pinned in right there. There's a barrel stub still up here. You can take that out now. So if I press that button I showed you back here and did that twist I just did, that's how you would pull out the full length of the barrel. But our barrel is demilled, so that's the only chunk we have there. So let's look at this. The gun, I believe I've read before, does have an adjustable gas valve, so I think you would pull this pin and you could either rotate or close this to adjust it. This is held in place by two pins there. And then I guess this would be what I was struggling with. This would be the bolt carrier, the whole thing, even though it's got a piston-like assembly on it. So, bullet fires, high pressurized gas, pushes it back, and moves the reaction back there. Well, since we got a piece of the barrel here, let's look at the rest of the barrel. So here's our end with the locking lugs on it. A little bit greasy and it's got some slag on it. Here's the chamber end with the grooved area for the extractor to claw onto and pull the casing out. And there's a torch cut. Next piece, nothing exciting. Third piece, we already saw. Fourth piece would be sticking out of the barrel shroud. It has some wrench flats on here and threading. And your threading's for your flash hider. Looks like a trumpet style. It's got flats on it. It's a pretty fine thread pitch. And that threads into there. I'm not going to show you all that. Going back to the front of the gun, we have another sling swivel on that side. We have our front sight here. I just noticed on it, got some fine print. See if I can focus. Focus. Kind of see it. Anyways, I just thought that was nice for setting your windage. Assume you'd back off that screw and, or maybe you use that screw to move it side to side, and then you have a kind of an AK style front sight post there to adjust your initial elevation. And I'll show you how this Again, how the barrel would go in. You put it right there. Oh, I might not be able to do this. The shroud might be bent, or I just might not be able to put enough force on it. Nope, can't do it. So you'd push it in, and then you'd rotate it. This is just a cap up here, basically. There's no special actual groove up here that locks it in place. All the locking action is done on the barrel down inside of here. We have a bipod that shipped off of the gun, so I'm not going to bother to put it back on, but what you have right here is the bolts here that hold your legs on. You can see they actually thread into this piece right here, which is removable. So you would take this inner half moon shaped piece, put it through here, kind of hold it up, and then you just run your bolts back in, and that's how you attach your bipod. It sits up top, I believe. There's a clasp, and you remove the clasp. The legs are free to drop down. You can use your bipod. Get kind of stakes to dig into the ground. See if I can simulate what it would look like on the ground. I believe like that. So let's look at the bolt carrier and the firing pin all at once. See how they interact here. Starting off with the bolt, you have these flaps that come off rather easy. Here's your extractor pin. It goes all the way through. This is your firing pin, which also engages your flaps. So your flaps go here. Let's see. Yep. Flaps go in. Oh. There we go. Firing pin / spring guide rod. One end of your spring goes into that buffer tube I showed you earlier. The other goes into here. And your bolt carrier, you got the piston or gas tube on this end, whatever you would consider it, because it's female. Charging handle. Got a pin here to hold the whole rod on, looks like. May or may not be removable. Might be a one-time operation to put that pin in. Might have to drill out if you want to take it out. So this would be the top, be facing up in the gun. These 3 holes here, I've heard them mentioned before. Nobody knows what they are. Rail right here. This would be sliding in the surface right here. You have 2 things operating the flaps here. You have the firing pin, which has this wedging action right here. So when you push the firing pin in, it wedges the flaps out. So when they're in a lock position, they'd be sitting right here like that. That's when the gun would be firing. All the pressure would be in the barrel. When the pressure gets at the end of the barrel and moves the operating rod, these are still in lockup. Oh, moved it too soon. These are still in lockup, but the bolt carrier wants to move because it's being pushed by the gases. So the bolt wing or the bolt flaps retract. They don't retract because of the firing pin. they retract because of this cutout right here. It has a wedging action on this part of the bolt flap right here. So where it necks down, it squeezes these when these are being, when the bolt flaps are being pushed in. And just to show you again, or at least try to show you, here's the surface where the bolt locks up. I'll try to do this, kind of difficult with the demilled gun though. So that's how they spread out. And then they would close like that. And then gun recoils. Comes home again. They lock. Gun fires, holding all this pressure back. And the operating rod resets them. They go back in. And it continues firing. So this gun fires from an open bolt, just like most submachine guns of the era. I have everything kind of laid out how it would be in the gun, except for the recoil spring would be in here. So I'm going to remove the bolt carriage, or the bolt, just to get out of the way here. So there's your catch on the operating rod, your sear. So the bolt would be back. This gets held back like that. When you pull the trigger, sear goes down, releases. Continue holding it. It'll just keep doing its thing until it runs out of ammo, or until you let the trigger go back up. And it locks in place. So here's the pan mag of the DPM, same as the DP28. Here's your locking surface in the front that you would drop down first, followed by your rear catch, kind of like your feed lip area. A little ramp there to push the cartridge nose down. The way you would load this is to hold the main body and to pull this with your finger. It's kind of hard to do on camera, so I'm going to do it off camera really quick. Okay, so I think I got it. It eased up a little bit once I got a few more rounds in it. So I'm holding the main body, and I'm, with my fingers back there, pulling the top part. You can see it'll expose another. There's a little air in here for the next round to drop in. Got these little two markers right there. Oh, and I put it another way. Okay, so if you just keep doing that until you load it up all the way, you release pressure. The round comes up. So then you have your bolt. This would be where the round gets stripped off. Your bolt would be traveling back in here, so this, there'd be your feed lips right here would catch the bolt, or the bullet, or the cartridge, sorry. And it takes some force here, but there. So that's how it strips it off. Notice the bullet catches this little feed ramp here, which helps push it out. And remember, this would all be happening upside down. Here's the 3-pan pouch that you can get for your DPM from Bowman Arms. You can see it has clips on the sides and on the bottom. And that spaces each one of the pan magazines apart so they don't rattle or damage each other. It's got these that come over the top, and then a buckle in the front, and an adjustable shoulder strap. One more thing you can get for your DPM is a canvas carrying case. Just has a flap that comes over the top once you get your rifle in. Wrap that around. Yeah, muzzle protector, leather. Pretty basic carrying case, but it's a must-have if you're going to buy this kit. Well, that's it. The Polish DPM parts kit. This would be an easy build for a reenactor, or maybe if you have the license to do a post sample, or if you have the skill and tooling to do a semi-auto, which is what I would like to do someday. There's not really any semi-auto conversion parts for them, but I figure I can always put it away and wait till somebody makes something. The barrel, like a barrel for it, a semi-auto fire control group, semi-auto bolt, and the receiver would have to be rewelded and proper denial features put in place. So that's the Polish DPM parts kit available from Bowman Arms. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.